Recording in progress.
Good morning, friends. Welcome to Community Church of Boston. We're so glad you're joining us from numerous locations, as well as from our auditorium at 565 Boylston Street, Copley Square, Boston. We keep the flame alive. We kept the flame alive last night with a wonderful celebration of International Women's Day in our monthly Peña, which happens first Saturday of every month. It's a Latin American style open mic that celebrates what's called Nueva Canción songwriting, political songwriting from Latin America, as well as poetry or whatever soapbox you want to get on and talk about. And I wish I could have been there. I was elsewhere. I was not doing sound, but helping somebody else do sound for me. Why? Because I'm still kind of temporarily disabled in coming back from a pretty bad fall that left me with a broken hip, and now I have a brand new hip, and I'm a hip guy. Anyway, my name is Dean Stevens, and I join you with all of my collection of Don Quixote statues that I inherited from my wonderful Aunt Mary of blessed memory. And I am so happy to share them with you, as well as my Rocinante. You know who Rocinante was? That was Don Quixote's horse. Scraggly, skinny, lame horse. And that's what's helping me get around these days. And I hope to be back in the saddle pretty soon. But meanwhile, I just welcome you with all of my heart and with newly gained admiration and gratitude after my hospital stay for the nurse profession. They treated me so beautifully in those 5 days, 6 days, Tuesday to Monday, yes, 6 days. And why do I bring this up right now? Because we're about to bring up this magnificent retired registered nurse who spent a life of dedication to her patients, and now in retirement continues that life of dedication to her community, advocating for nutrition and good cooking in Dorchester, and also advocating for a bunch of other things. Among them is the art of jazz singing. She joins us with our favorite jazz accompanist who gets to tinkle our newly tuned piano and backup Fulani Haynes. Folks, will you welcome Fulani Haynes and Michael Shea to our humble community church stage.
Good morning, everyone. Hello to folks in the audience and folks at home. So good to see everyone. Which camera do I look into? Here. Ah, good. Hi there. Good to see everyone. Michael Shea on the piano for you this morning. A duo presentation for peace. All we need in this world is to have a time for peace. A time of life and love with the blessings from above. A time when man and woman can be at peace. Oh, what a time of peace. Yes. Oh, what a time of peace. We need peace for our children, so that they may lead a better life. Oh, what a joy divine. What a perfect state of mind, with their worries and their cares left behind. Oh, what a peaceful time. We need peace for our children once again, so that they can lead a better life, with their worries and their cares left behind. Oh, what a peaceful time. Oh, what a peaceful time. Here is Michael on piano for you. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Fulani Haynes and Michael Shea. Folks, I want to tell you about a very full schedule of things coming up at the church. We have a newsletter about to arrive at your doorstep if you happen to be on our U.S. Postal Service list. And soon after that, it will arrive in your email box if you happen to be on our email list. If you aren't on either of those, we'd be glad to add you to either of those lists. I want to start with a really cool, amazing thing, and thanks to Amar for lining this up. Tomorrow night, we have a webinar as part of our monthly 10th of the month commemoration of John F. Kennedy's speech at American University on the 10th of June of 1963. This is a series that has gone on for a couple years now and has featured a whole bunch of wonderful speakers. And tomorrow night we will feature Representative Ro Khanna from California. And it's really an amazing privilege and honor to host this really wonderful voice in that wilderness known as the U.S. House of Representatives, that's mostly owned by the Israel lobby and the other major fossil fuel and pharmaceutical, and the list goes on, lobbies. Ro is a fresh voice, and it's going to be just great to host him tomorrow night. Thank you, Amar, for putting that together for us. Also, I want to tell you about several other things going on during the week. March 12th, what's that, Wednesday, is a regular meeting of Extinction Rebellion. that works on direct action for climate justice and climate reversal. That happens March 12th, 6 to 9. March 15th, another one of our simpatico groups that meets regularly at the church is called Muslims for Progressive Values. And they are having an iftar dinner Saturday, March 15th, 6 to 9. If you want more information about any of these events, you can call the church during our office hours, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, during regular office 10, let's say 10 to 6, and we can tell you more and about how to sign up or just show up for these events. March 16th is a big one. That's the Sunday, next Sunday, and we are featuring a documentary about the wonderful radical activist musician named Faith Petrick, who died maybe some 10 years ago at age of 105, and it's a magnificent tribute to her and to others who have a different look at what retirement also is all about. Amar, I wonder if you have that link ready to show. It's a very quick trailer about this documentary we're going to screen about Faith Petrick's life.
For sure where I don't want to stay in an old. When I get old and my head turns gray, I know for sure where I don't want to stay in an old folks' hoax or a Leisureville condo by the sea. When my work's all done, Kilgore, my time at last is all my own. I know just the life I want for me. I want to be a Geritol gypsy underneath the open sky. I'm gonna be a Geritol gypsy till I die.
What happened was that I got my daughter through college, and I quit my 9-to-5 job when I was 55 years old. I was working for the state, and you could retire at 55, which I did without any idea about what I was going to do next. It's just that I figured something would come along. A bunch of us decided that we would tour the United States performing. I decided that this is the life for me. We were gone 3 months. I didn't want to stop. I wanted to just keep on going. So I did. I became a traveling folk singer. The only song I've ever written, actually, that people have sung much is called Life Begins When You Retire. Because that's literally what happened with me. Before that, I had jobs. I was working. I got my daughter through school. But to find a career in something as creative as singing, well, it's been a lovely life.
When I came home one May day, my neighbor's father said, "Them marchers is all commies. Tell me, kid, are you a red?" I didn't know just what he meant. My hair back then was brown.
Faith would focus on specific things that she found very upsetting, but mostly it was her actions. She'd go and she'd do something.
I kept on agitating, 'cause what else can you do? You're gonna let the...
I sang the kind of songs I sing because I'm a very radical person. I'm a left-winger. I'm so far to the left that if the earth was flat, I'd fall off.
And you ain't done nothing if you ain't been called a red.
You know, I got a lot of accolades for being Ronnie Gilbert of the Weavers, but the real hero for me has always been Faith Petrick. Always.
And you ain't done nothing if you ain't been called a red. If you've sung a song of protest, then you're bound to hear it said.
She was part of a long buried history of American resistance.
Who could have imagined a Faith Petrick? Except a Faith Petrick.
It was important to Faith to have the idea that we're here to do this. This is our responsibility. If the world is going to become a better place, it's going to become better because we do something about it and not because it just happened.
For all of life plays like a tune. It sounds so sweet and ends too soon. You'd better rosin up your bow before it's time to go.
Faith Petrick. Whoops. This is involuntary. It's kind of really nice, but we expect that for a oh, there we go. What was that? I liked it. Both of those. Anyway, oh, here's another one, Amar. We gotta turn that one off too. It's not at my end, is it? Good, okay. All right. So join us next Sunday for Faith Petrick's documentary. We will be joined in song leading by Estelle Friedman, who is one of the filmmakers. Also, the Reverend Fred Small, who's called Affiliate Minister for Climate Justice at Arlington Street Church, will be joining us, as well as a lot of members of the Greater Boston Folk Song Society. Lori Fassman will be the leader from that organization. It should be a really wonderful event, and I'm going to try to be there in the flesh. I'm finally getting out of the house. That's the next Sunday, March 16th. And then in the afternoon, 2:30, please join us or stay with us for the postponed celebration of the life of our beloved departed Joan Livingston. That's next Sunday at 2:30. We had to put it off because of an event that happened in Copley Square the night that it was supposed to be. But we are rescheduling it, and we will come together to remember this lovely activist and outspoken member of our congregation, Joan Livingston, March 16th at 2:30. We go on from there to March 23rd, which is our Romero weekend. 24th of March is the anniversary of his assassination in 1980. And we have a program that is called San Romero de las Americas, and we celebrate Romero with a talk from Professor Jorge Cuellar from Dartmouth College. He is a Salvadoran professor of Latin American Studies, and we are looking forward. This is his first time joining us, Professor Jorge Cuellar. And let's just go on. All of this will be in our newsletter, March 30th. Two wonderful presenters, Reverend John Gibbons, who is also an affiliate minister at Arlington Street Church. His official title there is called Affiliate Minister for Good Trouble, and he will be joining us with Reverend Kevin Peterson. The two of them have been doing a lot of presentations in churches around Boston, especially African American churches, around the issue of reparations for our slave holding and slave trading past. And this involves many institutions, universities, churches, foundations, and among the initiatives that they have spearheaded is the initiative to change the name of Faneuil Hall, our sort of storied, historic meeting place right in the center of town. There came something again, Amar. Okay, well then I will continue with announcements with soundtrack.
Dean, that's coming from your computer.
It's coming from my computer?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize, and I will. That fixed it. I am sorry that that happened. I didn't even realize that those are coming on spontaneously with no cue from me. Just a couple more things in this announcement sector. We just got onto our YouTube channel a really notable audio. We have 40 years in our of cassettes of talks in community church from some of our glory days in the 80s and 90s. And this one is, she used to be called Sister Jean Gallo. Now she is called Dr. Jean Gallo. And it was from 1983. We have gotten a bunch of those cassettes digitized. And we are slowly putting them up on our YouTube channel, and we urge you to look for them. We put up Jean Gallo, and the next day there were 125 views, and we also got a chance to send the link to her partner, Sonny Robinson. They live in Gloucester, and Jean is in a pretty disabled state, and it was just great to be able to hand her that link to her own talk back 40 years ago. And we're going to keep doing that among those that we have ready to add to our YouTube channel is Ossie Davis, the great actor and civil rights leader, Jonathan Kozol, the author on and teacher, professor, speaker on the issues of education, spoke to us in those days. Noam Chomsky, Howard Zinn, that sort of thing that will soon be on our YouTube channel. So let's see, do I have anything else? A couple more speakers coming up. Amar just mentioned to me that we have confirmed Professor Sami Al-Arian for April 26th. He will join us from Istanbul, Turkey. He was one of the winners of our Sackwin Vanzetti Award 2 years back when we gave it to several victims of United States war on terror, including the Holy Land Foundation 5 and Sami. We also have, in the first Sunday in May, a conversation with Jill Stein and Miko Peled. So it's a magnificent set of things coming up. I want to bring back Michael and Fulani for a little bit of what we call the musical message before we go into our speaker today. Michael and Fulani, thank you for joining us and gracing our auditorium this morning.
You're very welcome, Dean. Thanks for having us back on again. On a clear day, rise and look around you, and you will see who you are. On that clear day, on that clear day, you will see who you are. You'll feel proud of those mountains, seas, and shores. You can hear from far and near a word you've never heard before. But on a clear day, on that clear day, you can see forever and ever more. day, rise and look around you, and you will see who you are. On a clear day, how it will astound you that the glow of your being outshines every star. You'll feel part of every mountain, sea, and shore. You can hear from far and near a word you've never heard before. On a clear day, on that near day, you can see forever and ever more. Take a solo. On a clear day, rise and look around you, and you will see just who you are. Baby, on a clear day, how it will astound you that the glow of your being outshines every star. You're gonna feel proud of those mountains, seas, and shores. You can hear from far and near a word you've never heard before. On a clear day, on that near day, you can see forever and ever and ever and ever more. Yes, on a clear day. It's nice to have a clear day, isn't it? It's a clear day today, 42 degrees in Boston. How's that? Is that suitable to you? I can do with 42. How about you, Michael? Can you take 42 degrees today?
Yeah, but I'll wait for 10 minutes.
Exactly. Let's,
All right.
Are we doing another tune for you, Dean?
Will you do another one for us?
Of course.
Thank you so much.
Quiet nights and quiet stars, quiet chords from his guitar, floating on a silence that surrounds us. Quiet walks and quiet dreams, quiet sounds from quiet streams, and a window looking out on Corcovado. Oh, how lovely. This is where I wanna be, having you so close to me until the final flicker of life's ember. I, who was lost and lonely, believing love was only a bitter tragic joke, have found with you the meaning of contentment. Oh, my love. Floating on a silence that surrounds us, quiet walks and quiet streams, quiet talks and quiet dreams, floating on a silence of a new day that comes forward to us. This is where I wanna be, having you so close to me until the final flicker of life's ember. I who was lost and lonely, believing life was only a bitter tragic joke, have found with you the meaning of contentment. Oh, my love. Oh, my love. Thank you.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
That's one of your favorites, right, Dean?
Especially the reference to Corcovado. The only Corcovado I know is in Costa Rica. And I don't know if there's a different one that refers to, but let's find out. Corcovado is a place that I've never been to on the Osa Peninsula in the way southwestern corner of Costa Rica, and it's supposedly one of the most remarkably beautiful rainforest experiences to visit there. So someday I will report back when I have been able to go there, when I'm newly able-bodied again, and I'll check it out. So anyway, thank you so much, Fulani and Michael. We'll hear one more number from them after our speaker, but I want to take this opportunity to present the introducer to our speaker this morning. His name is Calvin Airy, and he's a fairly recent addition to our membership, and a wonderful one at that, for his own incredible body of work around prisons, and also for his suggestions of different speakers for us to have. Let me use that as a reminder to all of us that our speaker choices are driven by our membership. And mostly what we come up with for an entire program, for an entire season, is suggestions that you have for speakers, and we encourage you to tell us who you would think would make a great presenter here at the church. You've heard some of the ones that I announce upcoming that will be in our new newsletter that comes out next week. But Calvin is a perfect example of that. We've had two speakers. One was Patrick Parr just a few weeks back, and now it's James Kilgore. So I want to bring up Calvin to give James the proper introduction that he deserves. Calvin.
It's a great pleasure today to introduce James Kilgore. I've known James personally for a couple of years now, and we have a couple of things in common. One, we're both returned citizens. Both of us have been incarcerated. And of course, the other thing is books. He writes them, and then I send them to prisoners. You know, it's and that's really how we first met. There was his first book that I sent was called Understanding Mass Incarceration, and then the latest, I've got a signed copy here of The Warehouse. I met him on a book tour, and managed to get a copy of that. I'll say more about that later, but how it came about that I started sending books into prisoners. When my story started to become known, it was written about in a publication, Richmond Magazine, and it was the cover story. This is online if anyone would care to read it. But what happened was a copy of that magazine got into the women's maximum security prison in the state of Virginia. And the law clerk there was a woman named Stacy Dillon. And when she read the story, it moved her. And she had her daughter look up my address and send me a letter, not to ask me for anything, but just to thank me for what I had done 50 years before when I was incarcerated in the state of Virginia. I was involved in a major civil rights case which, among other things, got rid of bread and water, diets, and solitary confinement, and it also desegregated the entire Virginia prison system. So when she wrote me that letter, at the time I was reading a book called Our Class by Chris Hedges, and I asked her if she had read it or if it was in the prison library, and it wasn't. So I sent her a copy. That was the first book that I sent in to a prisoner. And this was just a little bit over 2 years ago. Now, James's books are about mass incarceration. When I was released from prison in Virginia, there were about 250,000 prisoners in the entire United States. Today, there's 2 million, approximately 2 million prisoners. And when I think of them, I think of them in, I think of the starfish story. And I'll just refresh your memories briefly if you haven't heard it. But there was a man walking along the beach, and in the distance he saw a young child picking up starfish that had been stranded by the receding tide and tossing them one at a time back into the ocean. And when he got up to the child, he said, "You know, you're not really making much of a difference. There's tens of thousands of starfish stranded up and down the beach here." And the kid thought about that for a minute, and then he picked up another starfish and tossed it in, and he said, "Well, it made a difference to that one." And that's the way I think of mass incarceration. Mass incarceration is the totality of all those starfish, but we can't lose sight of the individual ones. And that woman I mentioned that I first started sending books to, think of her in that sense. Her name again is Shebri Dillon. She was arrested in 2016 and charged with, she was a first offender, charged with a nonviolent white-collar crime, and she was offered a plea deal of 4 years. And she thought that she had 4 young children, and she thought 4 years was it looked like a lot. And so she elected to take a jury trial and pled not guilty. And when she was found guilty, the judge sentenced her to 30 years in the Virginia state prison system. And she's already been incarcerated for over 8 years. And what she does, when I send her books, she reads them and circulates them. And our model is the freedom libraries that existed down south during the civil rights movement. Black people down south weren't welcome to use the public libraries. And so what they did was they on their own, they started libraries in the back of a home or the back of a store. They'd collect books and loan them out, and people would read them and talk about them and circulate them amongst themselves. And that's what we do. I send her books, and she reads them and circulates them. And we do this in the spirit of Malcolm X. Malcolm in his autobiography by Alex Haley, he stated that people don't realize that a person's whole life can be changed by just one book. And when I send books, I do it in that spirit, always with the hope that book will have that kind of an impact. In James's book, The Warehouse, is one of those books. And I just want to read a few words that Shebri wrote about that book when I sent it to her and it began circulating in her prison. Quote, "This book cracks like thunder when it lands on people. Just last night, Kilgore's words hijacked our thoughts and ideas. We threw them back and forth, trying them on in our own experiences, exposing the racial divides and recognizing our own roles. We talked of our experiences as women of all races and cultures and what oppression looked like for each one of us. We talked of solidarity, understanding, and support in building a bridge between our differences. Kilgore designed this book for freedom, and that is exactly what it is producing." And those are the kind of books that I think Malcolm meant, when he talked about books that could have an impact on somebody and change the trajectory of their lives. And so with those few words, I'd like to turn it over to James, and he could tell you a little bit more about how important it is, the healing process, as opposed to locking people up in the type of a system we had today. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Calvin, and thank you to Dean Stevens for organizing this, and I wish him a speedy recovery. I also appreciate the musical introduction from Fulani and Michael. It's nice to get our spirits warm. I would just want to begin by saying that I woke up this morning to the news that a dear friend and comrade from Zimbabwe named Everjoyce Wynne had passed. She was a great gender activist, social rights fighter for years and years, really a voice for African women in the global debate. So I'd like you to just take a minute to remember Everjoyce. Even though you don't know her, you can connect with her spirit. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. So the title of this talk is We Need Healing, Not Prisons. Now, the title of this talk for me is more of a prompt, and it's a title that came to me before Donald Trump took office. A more traditional way to address this topic might be to talk about the various forms of healing that can help transform people in ways that no prison can. I could give that talk, but I'm not going to exactly do that today. The political turmoil in this country, indeed the world, that the world faces today drives me elsewhere. I hope you'll forgive me if I go a little off topic. I will get to the topic, but the world is forcing us off topic, and I'm giving into that pressure. I lived in South Africa in the 1990s during the transition from apartheid to whatever form of democracy exists today. When I arrived in South Africa in 1991, I came to take part in the movement for liberation at a moment when almost everyone was preparing for the first democratic election in 1994. I worked with trade unionists, community activists, students, and church people who had been engaged in the struggle for freedom for decades. My family and I were latecomers in that sense, but we were passionate, dedicated. We had just spent 9 years in post-independence Zimbabwe. Freedom was in our blood. Even fate was seemingly on our side. Our first son, Louis, was born on the day that Nelson Mandela was freed from prison after serving 27 years because he dared to take up arms against apartheid. The stars were aligning for us. The notion of imprisonment versus healing and justice occupied center stage in the popular imagination in South Africa. The white minority regime that ruled South Africa for 46 years had visited untold horrors on the Black population. And as we moved into the early 90s, the tide was turning. The white rulers were going to lose their grip on political power. The question was, what should happen to them? Should the worst of them be dealt the harshest of punishments? Execution, life imprisonment, decades at hard labor, burning at the stake? In other words, should a popularly elected Black majority government treat their former oppressors the way the white ruling class had treated them? Or should a regime founded on democratic principles and racial equality show a different side? Should they be forgiving and set an example for the world, an example of forgiveness and goodwill? My personal backdrop to all of this was that although I was joining the fight for freedom and democracy, I myself was a fugitive from justice in the United States at the time. I was living under the assumed name of Charles Pape, having fled the United States after being involved in small group political violence that included blowing up police cars and carrying out bank robberies. During one of these robberies, a young mother who had come into the bank to deposit the collection money from the Sunday service at her church was shot dead by one of my comrades. As South Africa collectively tried to grapple with how to handle the questions of justice for the crimes of apartheid, I also grappled with how to handle the questions of how to address my own personal tensions and contradictions. I was trying to avoid prison, but also looking at how to heal, or at least how to fight for justice without precipitating loss of life. South Africa chose a path of forgiveness. There were no mass executions of white oppressors. Only a few of them ended up serving long sentences for the killing and destruction they perpetuated. South Africa was choosing a path of collective healing, of reconciliation rather than hatred, revenge, and punishment. The new government would start the extracting of justice at the top, with the leaders of the military and political structures of the apartheid state. The foot soldiers would come later. South Africa's process was a noble step at the time, but perhaps not exactly the right one. I will come back to that shortly. At the same time, the United States was fully immersed in a rampage of punishment, carrying out a war on drugs and mass incarceration on a scale never seen before in history. The prison population soared from 300,000 in 1980 to more than 2 million by 2009. People with no prior prison record were getting 10 or 20 years for possession and distribution of marijuana. Law enforcement went on a prison building binge. Illinois, the state where I've lived since my release from prison in 2009, built an average of one prison per year from 1980 to 2000. The prison population in our state went from 24,292 in 1983 to 65,320 in 2015. Like many states, Illinois was solving, and I put that in air quotes, problems of poverty, crime, racism, and economic underdevelopment by locking people up, mostly focusing on Black people. They even built the notorious Tams Supermax prison, where hundreds of gang members, many of whom had been tortured by police into false confessions, spent years, even decades, in solitary confinement. In the meantime, and I'm just talking about how the processes ran parallel but in different directions in South Africa and the United States. In the meantime, after the 1994 elections, South Africa embarked on an amazing exercise in mercy and forgiveness. Instead of punishing the white population, they were offering them an opportunity for transformation. The government formed a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which held hearings in dozens of communities. In these hearings, white police and former politicians were able to win some forgiveness if they fully disclosed their transgressions against the Black population. They were also expected, if they were in the military or police and involved in violence against the Black population, to be fully transparent in revealing what they had done, to whom they had done it, and who their superiors and accomplices were. These hearings, amazingly, they were a public exercise, and Black families who had lost a loved one to racist violence came forward in their thousands to witness their white former oppressors bearing their souls. At times, the parents or family members of those the white establishment had killed were allowed to cross-examine these wrongdoers and catch them in lies and exaggerations. The hearings were televised, and every night the national TV stations summarized the day's events, showing us weeping mothers recounting the loss of their sons to police murder, broadcasting footage of white police demonstrating in the courtroom the torture tactics they used to extract confessions, from choking to electric shock to beatings with the hippo hide whip known as the sjambok. A few of these perpetrators, those who withheld information or told untruths, ended up in prison, but most got amnesty. They were able to carry on with their lives. Most importantly, they were allowed to hang on to the intergenerational wealth they had accumulated off the backs of Black laborers. There was little restitution and few reparations. There was no nationalization of mines or agricultural land where South African capitalists had extracted most of its profits. The white Afrikaner farmers didn't have to return the vast farmlands they had expropriated from the Black population in the 1890s. Nor did they open up the mansions they had built with the millions they made off the labor of Black mine workers to the Black people without homes. But still, in the nation's eyes, these were amazing feel-good moments, these public hearings which exposed the evil deeds of the actors in the apartheid system, which put the voice and experience of Black people for the first time at the center and exposed the horrific complicity of the white population with the exploitation and oppression of their white supremacist system. There were moments even where Black mothers hugged the white policemen who had killed and tortured their sons. The country seemed to be on the road to transformation. The nation that had symbolized racism and oppression seemed to be turning into a symbol of freedom. But, and here's a key point, changing people's feelings and attitudes is not the same as changing the structure of society to enhance the economic power of an oppressed majority. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission brought healing, but in a very limited way. For the vast majority of Black people who participated in this, there was a moment of acknowledgement, of feeling recognized at the center of a history-making process. Moreover, a bloody racial war had been avoided or at least postponed. But ultimately, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and even elections wasn't a resolution or even justice, since it was not popular power that filled the vacuum left by white supremacists who were removed from political office. Ironically, not long after the democratic government took over, the South African government contracted a U.S. private prison company, the Geo Group, which may be familiar to some of you. It's the world's largest private prison company, and they built a mega prison in South Africa, one that looked just like what we see dotting the landscape of the United States. So for me, neither of these methods of addressing deep-rooted social problems deliver the required success. As you are no doubt aware, the result of the war on drugs has been disastrous, leading to an onslaught of stealing freedom from Black and brown people, as well as other poor folks. We have ended up with a school-to-prison pipeline which channels youth of color into cages, plus a rash of murders of Black youth by police and by their own community members. Prison and repression have not solved anything. And even though authorities have called alternatively for more police and more healing, the reality has been largely spinning gears in neutral. In South Africa, the noble experiment in racial justice, which aimed to create a rainbow nation of equity and prosperity, has merely transformed racial apartheid into class apartheid. The vast majority of Black people still suffer excruciating poverty, rampant homelessness, and a bleak outlook for a once promising future. A few Black people, like the current president, Cyril Ramaphosa, who cut his teeth for his presidential role by becoming the CEO of McDonald's South Africa, have joined the ranks of the super rich. But the majority sink deeper into the pools of poverty. Whites, who make up just 7% of the nation's population, have an average income 5 times greater than Black people. The Gini coefficient, which economists use to measure income inequality in a country, shows that even 30 years after the demise of the apartheid state, South Africa has a Gini coefficient of 0.67, the highest in the world. By comparison, the Gini for the US, a very unequal society, is 0.41, and the most egalitarian countries in the world, like Sweden and Norway, have a Gini somewhere around 0.24. And while Elon Musk can claim that whites are under attack in South Africa, and Donald Trump can offer these people asylum, to be honest, and may the gods forgive me for using these words in church, Elon Musk is full of shit when he talks about South Africa. The truth is that the boots of white people have never come far off the throats of their black compatriots. And I know somewhere in South Africa, there is a black person with the imprint of Elon Musk's boots on their throat. So in the end, the ultimate exercise in healing, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission hearings and studies exposed but did not make change. There is a saying that knowledge is power, but knowledge is only power if it is backed up by a political force able to convert that knowledge into power. Otherwise, the knowledge remains inert, fodder for arguments and debates and researchers, but not a real weapon of change. The freedom dreams of the black majority in South Africa have not come to fruition. They remain imprisoned in an economic jail with no key and no parole date. There is no healing for them. Where does that healing come from? Last weekend, I attended a virtual memorial for a friend and comrade from South Africa, Prashani Naidu. Her life partner closed his moving testament to her by saying words that beautifully summarize the contradiction and the tensions in the prompt I have been given today. He said that Prashani would have urged people to be gentle with each other so we can be dangerous together. Ahmed's words remind us of the connection between love and collective struggle. Yes, we must be ready to fight and ready to help each other heal, to be gentle, but we must recognize that there is no healing without justice, that individuals may do therapy or yoga or deep breathing or may drink cashew milk and eat a plant-based diet. But in the world we live in today, those individualized healing approaches will never complete the healing process because there is a rising power inflicting wounds on us as individuals, on our community, indeed on our nations and our entire earth. We don't need to look far to find that rising power. We saw it in the flesh on the stage at the inauguration of Trump as 47th president. The global ruling class of tech and financial oligarchs, the robber barons of the 21st century. They have already inflicted wounds on the working class of this country with massive layoffs and begun their process of eating away at the fabric of the very threadbare welfare state that the United States has eked out over the years. And those who attempt to resist will find themselves in jail, prison, or in a plane or bus on the way back to whatever destination the oligarchs have chosen for them. So in the end, I'm saying I am an abolitionist, but I am an abolitionist who has learned a lot from South Africa and from 6.5 years in US prisons. I have learned, among other things, that taking up arms in isolation is futile and dangerous. We don't need an army to build power. We need to learn to work together, to live together, to be gentle to each other so we can be dangerous to our enemies in whatever way is necessary. Abolition, for me, is not just about getting rid of jails and substituting healing. We must remember that healing is a gentle, loving process at times, but in other moments, it is fierce. It means fighting the fire of the oppressors with the righteous fire of the oppressed. In the words of the great Bolivian-Cuban revolutionary Ernesto Che Guevara, at the risk of seeming ridiculous, let me say that the true revolutionary is guided by a great feeling of love. It is impossible to think of a genuine revolutionary lacking this quality. We need true revolutionaries in this moment, people who won't make excuses for stripping away the fundamental rights and dismantling the elements of the state that provide benefits to the marginalized. Can we quietly sit and watch while the oligarchs and robber barons begin a new process of colonialism? In 1884, the leaders of Europe sat down in Berlin with a map of Africa and divided up the booty. That conference is the reason people in Senegal speak French and people in Zimbabwe speak English. More importantly, that conference lies at the root of the poverty of African nations and the relative wealth of European nations. Trump and Musk are mounting a new Berlin conference. The maps of Greenland, Panama, and Palestine, which they call Israel, are on the table. On one level, we can take Trump's executive orders and Gaza as the prologue of the new Berlin conference, of the new offensive by the US and its allies in the state houses of Israel, Hungary, and El Salvador. It has been 15 years since I left prison. The prompt for today makes me ask the question, have I healed? Have those touched by my actions healed? Are these even the right questions to ask? When I came out of prison, I visited my mother, who I only saw twice during my 27 underground years. I visited her virtually every day until she passed away at age 104 in 2017. I believe she kept alive just so we could reconnect, so we could heal the fractured relationship that my life created for us. It took me until 2018 to write a letter to the son of the woman we shot in the bank. It took him about 2 years to reply, but he accepted my apology as genuine. Though he was not a left-wing activist like myself, he could see that I had healed and found a new way to fight for freedom that would not victimize people like him and his mother. These were important processes for me, but still not enough. They were personal, solitary, but the structures of inequality and oppression inflict wounds that cannot always be healed so quickly. They also prompt us to ask deeper questions, to take up new fights, to develop new solutions for challenges. If we keep thinking of healing as an individualized process, we will continue to be wounded by the robber barons who fully recognize that they need to transform society, that they need an organized force that can identify problems and take focused and militant action to address those problems in ways that serve their interest. Most of us have been traumatized by the actions of the robber barons in their first 40 days of their new regime. We are shocked by the speed of the momentous decisions and declarations. He told us he would begin his movement on day one. He has kept his promise. For me, he is opening old wounds. He and Musk are the 21st century voice of the fathers of apartheid, Henrik Verwoerd, John Forster, P.W. Botha, and the patriarch of colonialism, Cecil John Rhodes, who never gave up his dream of owning Africa from Cape to Cairo. We must take our deep breaths. We must eat healthy food and love one another. But we must recognize that we are in a fight and we are not alone. The future of the living earth and all its people hangs in the balance. We must be gentle with each other so we can be dangerous together. Thank you.
James Kilgore. Them are some powerful words, and it really is just such an honor and pleasure to have you join your spark, your still small voice to our still small but less small voice as we carry on our desire to spread this into a flame of fire and justice. Thank you, James. That was just a really remarkable testimony. And I just am so glad to welcome you to our community. And thank you, Calvin, for bringing James to our attention. Before we bring on Fulani and Michael for one last beautiful, delicious number, I want to remind you all that we depend on your generosity to keep this thing called Community Church going on into the future. We have a past of 105 years of doing good trouble, seeking justice in the city of Boston, and we have big plans to keep it going deep into the future with a bigger bullhorn, bigger platforms, but we need your help in every way we can. Join us, become a member, or just join us when we have meetings. We have just such an exciting near future of really beautiful programs. We have put in the chat our website, which is communitychurchofboston.org. There you can find a PayPal function to contribute, as well as a credit card function. In the PayPal, you can also become a recurrent donor, where you help us once a month with a tiny amount, whatever you can afford. I'm not very good at money pitches, but I just pitched it at you. And so I thank you for being with us. And I would like to thank again Fulani and Michael for joining us. And how about one more number from you? And after that, we will have a conversation with James.
Give him a lovely hand for that tune. Who knows the name of that tune, or who made that tune famous? Starts with a T. Thelonious Monk. I know. Wasn't that beautiful?
Lovely.
Did it take you somewhere? Yes, yes. I love to be taken somewhere. Oh, I shouldn't say it like that, huh? We're good. Okay. We have one more tune for you. Thank you to the gentleman who gave us such a wonderful story today. Because of you, I'm changing the tune that I was going to do last. And it's called When I Fall in Love. And thank you for a magnificent story. Thank you. Go into your heart, please. When I fall in love, it will be forever, or I'll never fall in love. In a restless world like this is, love is ended before it's begun. And too many moonlight kisses seem to cool in the warmth of the sun. When I give my heart, it will be completely, or I'll never give my heart, my heart. And the moment I can feel that you feel that way too, is when I fall in love with you. Ooh, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Fulani Haynes, Michael Shea. Thank you so much. It's always just such a pleasure when you grace our stage with such elegance and style. Well, we begin our conversation with James with a just maybe question. If you know more about what has become increasingly apparent about Elon Musk and the rest of the South African connection with the tech bros. I can't verify for the truth of this, but I heard this one short on YouTube talking about that Musk's parents coming from the Canadian Nazi Party and moving to South Africa / Rhodesia to find a place that would that those sort of ideas would flower, and that he has never forsworn that part of his past. And here's the guy who's inside the china closet, breaking everything that we have and we know. And yes, some of those things need to be broken, but not the ones that help people who are in need, and that support people who are elderly or disabled or who have children with special needs. Do you know much more about that connection, James?
I'll be honest, that's not really a story I'm familiar with, so I don't want to make things up.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna check it. I'm gonna chase it up for sure.
Yeah, I will try to find the link and send it to you. It was, and it's like today's information dissemination is all about little tiny sound bites. But this person who I heard talking about this sounded very knowledgeable and very erudite, but that doesn't mean anything anymore. You need to look up your sources and find verification and sources for things. But it's a very scary, disheartening thing. And it's a matter of fact that he's pursuing the most far-right parties and supporting the far-right parties in Europe, and telling Germans that they need not to feel any more guilt about the sins of their parents and grandparents. It's a scary moment when that is what holds power in Washington, D.C.
So just looking quickly, I mean, I think it's important to recognize that the core of the white political leadership of apartheid was, they sided with the Germans in World War II. I mean, they had, they had long-standing Nazi sympathies. I'm just looking real quickly. I'm not seeing a direct connection between his parents and the Nazis, but they seem to have interviewed his father, and his father was kind of proud of him making that Nazi salute at the when he was making that speech. So I mean, clearly his father has those political tendencies, and he ran for office in South Africa against the National Party, against the party of apartheid, and I believe he probably ran from the right rather than from the National Party was not radical enough for him in terms of being racist.
Yeah. One final thing to tell you is that you join a club of community church presenters, people who were underground. The other one that comes to mind is Kathy Power, who spoke, who is a bit of a similar testimony about her time in the underground from the early 70s all the way till the early 90s, when she came and then served a prison term here in Massachusetts, and is now a writer and works in real estate here in the city of Boston. She has joined us a couple of times.
Okay, I tracked Kathy Power for many years, but I never knew what had happened to her since she came out of prison. So thanks for the update on that.
Yeah, no, a really wonderful presenter. It's been about 7 or 8 years since we heard from her, and don't have. She spoke before we started recording everything and putting it up on YouTube, so I couldn't send you a link for that. But I'd like to be in touch with her again and have her present. She has a great message. Amar, is there anyone in the auditorium or online that wants to say hello to James or have make any commentary?
No one in here had their hands raised.
Okay. Okay, and online, same thing. Well, then I would like to go to another thing that was brought up in the chat, which is really just very troubling and hopefully will be a topic for an upcoming event, which is here at the church, which is about what's going on college campuses and the Columbia University sending one of the protesters about Gaza to be detained by ICE or something like that, and the Columbia starting to demand some sort of a non-disclosure agreement from students, something akin to a loyalty oath. Something akin to what I mentioned when I had my 3 minutes of fame before the State House, which is the formation of a new House Anti-Israel Activities Committee, which is basically what it is. At the State House, it was attempt to do anti-BDS legislation, and this was 5 years ago, and it did not thrive in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, but in other states it certainly has, and there's places where to work for the state, that is, be a public school teacher or be a speech therapist on a military base, whatever it is, you have to sign an oath where you're not going to criticize Israel or AIPAC. It's really just a horrific thing. In many states, there was cookie cutter legislation sent out by AIPAC and its ally named ALEC, and a lot of states passed that kind of thing. It didn't pass in Boston. I like to think it was because of a fiery talk that I gave for 5 minutes before I was cut off. And but anyway, it's a really troublesome thing on college campuses, and I would like to assemble a number of students in this area in Boston who have been disciplined, faculty who have been fired, a couple of students at MIT who have been kicked out of their PhD programs for speaking out about Gaza and speaking against some of the military recruiters that they have come to the MIT campus from the likes of Lockheed Martin or Elbit Systems, the Israeli weapons manufacturer that makes those horrific quadcopter drones that so horrifically skirt or hover over the entire territory of Gaza. Anyway, it's something very troublesome, and thank you, Ernie, for putting up that post in the chat. There's a lot of things to talk about in the chat, but I see that Charlie and a couple other people have their hands raised. Go ahead, Amar, with recognizing them.
Should I just ask a question? This is Charlie. I was just curious about your choice of South Africa to be a place to flee to. It seems to me naively that you'd probably stand out more than in other places. And what was going through your mind when you chose South Africa?
Well, at the time I was I went underground in 1975, and you have to remember there's no internet in those days. I had a driver's license from Wisconsin that didn't even have a picture on it, right? So if you could move from one part of the country to another, you could pretty much disappear because there was no way to track you. So during my underground time, I became active in the anti-apartheid movement, mainly in Minnesota. We had a committee called the Twin Cities Committee for the Liberation of Southern Africa. And I worked with people from Zimbabwe in that committee and some from South Africa, but the Zimbabwean people that were there went back to Zimbabwe in 1980 when Zimbabwe became independent, and they then invited me to come and live there for a while. And so I taught in schools there, and then I became more immersed in the political struggles within South Africa. But it's just important to. It's hard to think how different that world was. I mean, when there was no internet, and so there was no, there was no way to really track people and find out what they were doing before they came to a certain place. So, and I was committed to fighting, for the struggle to end apartheid. So South Africa was actually the perfect place for me, and I learned so much from the movements there and how they organized and how they mobilized and how they built up political power and an analysis of the world. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
I mean, I still stuck out, but it didn't really matter because people didn't have a way to find me.
Okay, probably should pass it on to the next questioner. Dean, you're muted again.
There we go. Lynn Mystic Healer has her hand raised. Go ahead, Lynn.
Hello, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, especially James, what you've been through and your understanding and background and what you spoke about. I went to Africa with Bright Phillips. He has 7 languages. He was actually the King Sunny O'Day. Anyway, it was with the World Bridge Institute that he was working with. He's inside of Portland, and he'd been involved in World Bridge Institute, but the also was the Kapaniati, all the music of drumming and dance and singing, and and they're wrecking all the cultures. I put a bunch of different information in Ubuntu. Did you run into Ubuntu, James? Any of that in South Africa with Michael Tellinger?
Oh, okay. Well, Ubuntu is kind of all over South Africa.
It's all over the world. It's coming here. Yeah, they're going all over. I mean, there's a group of leaders now, and they're moving everywhere. It's wonderful. So I wanted to bring that in too. But also what they're wrecking all the cultures. I put some information in the chat because the other one here, I'll put that in. They're very, very important contacts and information to share with you. The other one was, Murder by Decree. He's really critical. He's an author. He's a defrocked priest, author now of 20 books in Canada. A Murder by Decree. He's taken down the Vatican. People don't realize that the Vatican, the evils that took over, really, it's evil. And what they did too, it's been covered up. That's what they do. They cover up the histories, right? And keep on going. And the history started helping with the Native Canadians in Canada. And it's so, those residential schools are so frighteningly, they're perverted, okay? It's perverted. I mean, priests and nuns, what they were doing, it is so perverted. And
Right.
They are, but what's scary is they are over the top. Part of the Vatican nation is the largest nation on this planet. And we have to get them responsible. And this Kevin Annett is working on that. He said he even has speakers that are doing, it's called satanic ritual abuse from the Catholic Church and the Mormon Church are involved in that. And I've heard it other places. It is so perverted what they've done to these children. And they doing the recruitments, and what we're really up against too right now, why they have to be held responsible and pay back and help us shift the systems of darkness and evil. I mean, it is so grotesque what they've done. And they're the ones right now, these Christian nationalists, evil. I mean, they're overseen by these evil overlords, and they started Big Pharma, man-made drugs over herbs, God-made medicines for humans. These evil ones that took over the Vatican. Wait till you look at the history of Big Pharma and their experimentation, clear to genocide, clear to experiment. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And then Big Pharma bought actually Auschwitz, the property, and bought property for Hitler. And after bought the property for Hitler, made methamphetamine for Hitler's armies. I mean, and then Operation Paperclip. Everyone's got to find out about the details of Operation Paperclip. Who came over after the atrocities of World War I and II? I mean, and combined with these overlords out of the Vatican nation worldwide. Okay, that's our Supreme Court, Opus Dei. And then Bayer and Monsanto mergers and those outlaying systems, they all have to be shifted. I mean, all the monies and all those projects and programs, I mean, the poisons of our warfare system of chemical, biological, nuclear, they're hiding it all. They're hiding all the nuclear, all the biological and chemical warfare, like chemtrails and Dane Wigington trying to get his information out there. Those are scientists, like Spanish War, Spanish flu. Does anybody talk about the real details on that? What's really going on? And these overlords have Sophia already in Saudi Arabia, who is a friggin' robot, okay? Citizen robot, citizen. Okay.
Yeah, have a specific,
evil
any specific
AI.
question for James this morning?
Yeah, what I wanted to know was, are you associated with any of those law groups? ACLU, the Southern Poverty Law Center. There's a women's group. It's National Women's Legal Center. They're helping League of Women Voters. And then there's what I was thinking about, you know, because you, with your background, there's Midas Touch. They can help you. There's no, what I'm saying is there are all these good guys like you guys coming in. And now, and the other one is the Now March. It's really critical this next Saturday in Washington, D.C. by lawyers that are, I mean, these guys are coming for impeachment and treason and bringing in, helping us, you know, delineate these evil ones that, you know, the oligarchs that took over these, you know, these systems for going into massive, you know, depopulation and takeover and robots and transhumans and all evil, nasty, poisonous programs. So anyway, I just wondered if you were associated with any of those.
Well, I mean, I'm sure I have connections with those organizations, and I've worked with them on different campaigns, particularly around the reform of the criminal legal system. And I mean, the ACLU, for example, is very active in Illinois in terms of trying to change a lot of the sentencing laws and a lot of the policies for parole, et cetera, et cetera. They greatly impact people coming out of prison. So that's how I'm connected with the ACLU and with other organizations as well. I'm also connected with the organizations of formerly incarcerated folks that try to, you know, build political pressure to change the conditions for people when they come out, particularly the National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls, which is based in Massachusetts. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but so I mean, I work with those organizations of formerly incarcerated folks as well, trying to make changes in the system. Yeah.
So, well, what I'm working on is getting multicultural, and they hate that word even, is multicultural, body, mind, spirit. And there's a group, and I put it in the chat, out of California, because we have total proof. Heart and soul humans have all, red, yellow, black, and white, been used, abused, duped, on this planet, used as enslavement, you name it, for eons, and all over this planet. And so what we're up against now, as you can see, the dark evil ones that took over are heartless, really.
Right.
I mean, so we wanted to bring in legislation and advertise what we want is take all the dark money systems, which we can track now, and what they're doing the wrong way, take their money and their programs and put them into enlightenment, peace, green, massive new green healing systems. And food, I mean, but I wanted to get the food thing. There's medical hypnosis. I'm into alternative healings. I was given
Excuse me. I think Charlie had a question before. I just
Okay.
want to make sure other people get a chance.
Charlie, you still there? I think we lost Charlie, but thank you, Lynn, for
Thanks for that. You've
joining
given
us
me a
and
lot of
giving us
leads
all
to
those
chase out.
resources. And let's say thank you. This is when we roll up the credits. Up they roll, up they roll. James, it really is a pleasure to hear you and think of what you have shared with us. I often go back and listen again and take in what speakers have shared with us, and that's something that we can do with this YouTube channel. And I urge you to do that and share the talk with other folks as well, and look at other things that we have on that channel, which includes a bunch of concerts and poetry readings and talks and celebrations of all sorts. Don't forget next Sunday, a documentary about Faith Petrick, the activist, centenarian musician, and also in the afternoon, Joan Livingston's memorial celebration that will happen at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. If I were down at the auditorium, I'd be getting a little bit of aroma of Luis Guzman's wonderful luncheon that he always prepares for us after our Sunday program. If you all want to take advantage of the fact that the weather's starting to get nice, to come down to Copley Square, take the T, the orange line or the red line or the green line. You can get there on a bunch of different bus lines. It's the center of the universe down there, which is a good thing and a bad thing too. But please do join us on upcoming events that we have. Our newsletter is about to come out. I want to thank James Kilgore. I want to thank Amar Ahmad for doing all the technical part of our live stream this morning and putting up the speakers. I want to thank Fulani Haynes and Michael Shea for being with us this morning. It's always a pleasure. These are our repeat offenders who have joined us numerous times. It's always just a breath of fresh air. And I want to thank all of you who are still on the Zoom, like Russ Ziegler and Richard Burrell and Rick and Naeem and Phyllis Cunningham and Lynn Mystic Healer and Jose Aleman, our clerk on his iPhone, and Ernie. Thank you for that information about Columbia University students. Barbara Harrison, thank you for being with us. James Kilgore, Charlie in his new digs over there in Chelsea, and Amar and myself, Dean Stevens, and we say goodbye to you with this little song. Brothers, now our meeting is over. Brothers, we must part. Brothers, we'll be gone, but I will love you in my heart. And we'll land on the shore, and we'll land on the shore, and we'll land on the shore, and be safe forevermore. Sisters, now our meeting is over. Sisters, we must part on International Women's Day. Sisters, now our meeting is over. We love you in our heart, and we'll land on the shore, and we'll land on the shore, and we'll land on the shore, and be safe forevermore. Thank you, everybody.
Beautiful. Thank you.